Right now, someone on your team is looking at a pipeline forecast. They're showing it to you as gospel. You're nodding, you're moving forward with hiring plans, board decks, and quarterly bets based on that number. And here's what I need you to hear. That pipeline number is probably lying to you. I'm not saying your team is being dishonest. I'm saying your pipeline is corrupt, not maliciously, but systematically. And the cost of corrupted pipeline data, it's enormous. It leads to missed forecasts, blown board conversations, and hiring decisions that don't match reality. I'm Colton Rodrigue, RevOps leader and founder of Elefante RevOps. For the last 8 years, I've audited and rebuilt pipelines at companies ranging from seed stage all the way to Series C. And I've seen the same patterns over and over again. The same blind spots, the same data rot that hides until it's too late. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why your pipeline is lying, how it happens, and most importantly, how to fix it in 30 minutes. Let's go. Here's something wild. In our work with founders and operators, we asked 200 plus GTM leaders how confident they were in their pipeline forecast. 73% said we're very confident or extremely confident. Then we audited their pipelines. 68% of them had material forecast misses within the next quarter. That's not a sales team problem, that's a data problem. And the reason those forecasts miss isn't usually the reps are sandbagging or lying. It's that the pipeline data itself is corrupted at the foundation. It's like trying to navigate with a map where half the roads don't exist and the other half lead to the wrong places. What does corrupted pipeline data actually cost you? First, inaccurate revenue forecasts, your board gets surprised. Your investors lose confidence. Second, terrible rep coaching. You're celebrating deals that have 0% chance to close. You're ignoring deals that are actually at risk. Your best reps and your weakest reps look the same in the system. Third, hiring and resource decisions made on false data. You bring on 2 new AEs because the pipeline says you need them, but the deals those AEs are supposed to work aren't real. By month 3, you realize you hired ahead of a forecast that never existed. And fourth, and this is the one that keeps founders up at night, confidential conversations with your board become theater instead of strategy, because you know deep down that the numbers might not be real. So here's the question, how did we get here? There are 5 primary ways pipeline data becomes corrupted. Understanding these is the difference between a pipeline you can trust and a pipeline you're scared to look at too closely. Corruption number 1, bad stage definitions. Let me ask you something. What does prospect mean on your team? What about qualified lead? What about in conversation? What about negotiation? If you ask 10 different reps, you get 10 different answers. And that's the problem. In most companies, pipeline stages aren't actually defined. They're implied. They're fuzzy. One rep thinks in conversation means had one call, they seemed interested. Another rep thinks it means we've sent a proposal and they're actively evaluating. Those are not the same thing. One rep's in conversation might have a 15% close rate, another's might have 65%, but they're on the same report being forecasted together as if they're equal. Here's what this looks like. Your VP of sales says, we've got 2.4 million in qualified pipeline, and that number gets baked into your forecast. But half of that qualified pipeline is deals that just have a first call. The other half is deals actively being evaluated with buying committees. You're mixing 2 completely different probability levels into one bucket, and then you're surprised when the forecast misses. Corruption number 2, no exit criteria. This is my favorite one because it's the simplest to fix and the most overlooked. Most pipelines have entry criteria, usually something like contact info confirmed or decision maker engaged, but almost nobody has exit criteria. There's no trigger that says if a deal doesn't progress past X point by Y date, it leaves the pipeline. So what happens? Deals stay in your pipeline for months or years. One company I audited had deals from 2022 still sitting in negotiation. Nobody removed them, nobody formally lost them. They just sat there. Those stale deals dilute your forecast. They inflate your available pipeline. And worst of all, they hide your actual sales velocity. If you have 30 deals in your pipeline and 8 of them are dead but still sitting there, you're not actually managing 30 opportunities, you're managing 22. But your number says 30, so your forecast assumes you'll close some of those ghost deals. You won't. The fix here is simple. Define when deals leave the pipeline. If we haven't had contact in 60 days, the deal exits. If the prospect has gone dark for a discovery call, it exits. If they're still evaluating after 120 days, it exits. Whatever your standard is, write it down and then enforce it. Corruption number 3, happy ears syndrome. This is a cultural and behavioral problem, but it corrupts your data just as much as a technical one. Happy ears syndrome is when a rep hears something from a prospect and interprets it in the most optimistic possible way. Prospect says, "That's interesting. We should talk to our CFO about budget." Rep thinks they're ready to move forward, just need budget approval. Rep inputs to CRM, move to negotiation, waiting on CFO sign off. But here's what actually happened. A prospect kicked a conversation to their finance team. That's not momentum. That's a delay. That's friction, but it got recorded as progress. Happy ears happens because reps are incentivized to believe in deals. If they're in sales, they want to close business, so their brain interprets ambiguous signals. Sounds good. We'll follow up. Let me check with the team as forward motion. And those interpretations compound. A deal that should be early stage gets marked advanced because of 3 happy ears conversations strung together. The data doesn't lie, but the people inputting the data, they're optimists by nature, and their optimism corrupts the system. Corruption number 4, deals entered way too early. This is where a lot of pipeline inflation lives. A rep has a conversation with someone at a prospect company. Maybe it's the right conversation. Maybe it was just a networking coffee. Doesn't matter. They create an opportunity in the CRM. Then, because the deal exists, it gets forecasted. Because it's forecast, it gets mentioned to leadership. Because it gets mentioned, it gets believed in. Because it's believed in, it starts shaping decision making. But here's the truth. The deal was never real. It was a conversation. A conversation isn't an opportunity. The fix is to raise the bar for when something becomes a deal. In your pipeline at Elefante RevOps, we recommend a 2-gate system. Gate 1, confirmed stakeholder meeting, not a first call, but a structured conversation with decision-making power or influence. Gate 2, clear business problem or use case articulated. Until both those exist, it's not an opportunity, it's a lead, it's a prospect, but it's not in your pipeline forecast. This alone, raising your bar for pipeline entry, typically reduces pipeline inflation by 20 to 30% right out the gate. But more importantly, it means your pipeline number actually reflects real opportunities. Corruption number 5, no opportunity status updates. Finally, the most insidious corruption, deals stay in the same stage for months, even though reality has completely changed. A deal enters evaluation in January, there's momentum, there's activity, and then something happens. Maybe the buyer goes dark. Maybe they tell your rep, we're shelving this until next quarter. Maybe they lose budget. But the deal is still sitting in evaluation in April. Your forecast is still assuming it has 30% probability of closing this quarter. The deal hasn't changed in the CRM because nobody moved it. Not because your rep is being lazy, but because moving a deal feels like admitting defeat, and culture matters. If your team feels like moving a deal backward is a failure, they won't do it. They'll just let it go. The result? Your pipeline becomes a historical artifact, a record of deals as they were, not as they are. Okay, you've heard the 5 corruptions. Now you might be thinking, great, Colton. My pipeline is probably broken. How do I actually fix this without blowing up my sales team? Here's the good news. You can diagnose and begin to fix your pipeline in 30 minutes. This is not a quarterly project. This is a power move you can do this week. Here's the process. Minute 1 through 5, pull your pipeline report. Export your pipeline by stage, get a list of every open opportunity, the stage it's in, when it was created, the last activity date, and the close probability. Don't overthink this. If your CRM is set up normally, this is a 30-second report. Minute 5 through 10, apply the exit criteria test. Go through your pipeline and ask one question for every deal. When was the last legitimate activity on this deal? Look for the deals where that last activity was 60 plus days ago. Those deals should not be in your forecast. They are dead, or they're dead walking. Either way, they're corrupting your number. This is where you'll typically find deals that have no business being in your system. Create a purge list. Don't delete them. CRM tools are auditable. Move them to a stalled stage or a hold bucket so you know what you removed. Minute 10 through 20, stage sanity check. Now, pull 5 deals at random from 3 different stages. Let's say 2 from evaluation, 2 from negotiation, and 1 from discovery. Read the deal notes, look at the activities, ask yourself, does the stage this deal is in actually match what's happening in reality? You'll be shocked how often it doesn't. You'll find deals in negotiation with no activity for 3 weeks. You'll find deals in discovery that should be in advanced. This is corruption you can see immediately. When you see it, it tells you something. Your stage definitions aren't clear enough, or your team isn't updating the CRM in real time. If you notice patterns, start documenting them. Most of your deals skip evaluation entirely. Deals seem to stall in negotiation after 3 weeks. These patterns tell you where your process is broken. Minute 20 to 30, ask your top rep. Here's the last step. Pull your top performing rep aside and ask them to walk you through their 5 biggest deals. Don't audit them, just listen. Ask questions like, what is the deal actually waiting on? When will you hear back? What does the next step look like? What's the real close date versus the CRM close date? Your best rep will know actual status of deals in ways the CRM doesn't capture. That's where the real intelligence is. When you do this audit, here's what you'll discover. First, how much pipeline inflation you actually have. Second, where your process is breaking down. Is it stage definitions, exit criteria, or just cultural willingness to update? Third, what your actual pipeline really looks like versus what the forecast says. And from there, you have a roadmap. You know what needs to be fixed now. Once you've cleaned your pipeline, and I'm not talking about a perfect pipeline, I'm talking about a known pipeline, a few things change. First, accurate forecasts. When your pipeline data is real, your forecasts become real. You stop being surprised by misses, you start hitting your number with consistency. And that's not magic. It's not luck, it's because you're forecasting based on actual probability, not hope. When a deal is in evaluation, you know it actually means what you think it means. When a deal is in negotiation, it's not sitting there dead, it's actually negotiating. That clarity propagates through everything. Your monthly revenue forecast stops being theater. It becomes a tool. Second, coaching that matters. Right now, if you're coaching your reps, you're probably using CRM as gospel. You're looking at pipeline stages and making decisions based on where deals sit. But if the CRM is corrupted, your coaching is corrupted too. Once your pipeline is clean, coaching becomes surgical. You can say, your deals in negotiation are stalling. Here's what I'm seeing. Let's talk about how to unstick them. And you can say that with confidence because you know the data is real. You can also identify patterns. Maybe one rep is great at early stage, qualifying but terrible at closing. Maybe another is the opposite. You can't see those patterns in a corrupted pipeline, but in a clean one, they're obvious. Third, board conversations you're not afraid of. This is the one that matters most for founders, especially funded founders. Right now, when you do a board meeting, you show the pipeline forecast, and there's a small part of you that wonders, what if they dig into this? What if they ask me to defend this number? That's a terrible feeling. That's a founder running on hope instead of data. When your pipeline is clean, you don't feel that. You can show that forecast and own it because you know it's real. A board member can drill in and you don't sweat. You know what you'll find. That confidence changes everything. It changes how you fundraise. It changes how you plan. It changes how you sleep at night. As you go back to your business and you start thinking about your pipeline, here are the diagnostic questions you should be asking your team. Question 1. What exactly triggers a deal to enter our pipeline? If you can't get a clear answer, you have a problem. There should be a specific event, not when the rep thinks it's qualified, but a specific observable trigger. Question 2. What is our average deal cycle time by stage? And does it match reality? If a deal should spend 20 days in evaluation, but they're spending 60, something's wrong. Either your process is broken or your deals aren't what you think they are. Question 3. When was the last time we removed a deal from the pipeline, and why? If the answer is we never do or I can't remember, your pipeline has rot. Question 4, ask your top rep, what percentage of deals in your pipeline are you actually confident about closing? If they say 90% or above, great. If they say 60%, that's corruption. That gap between what the CRM says and what your rep knows is real. That's where you audit. Question 5, what would you change about how we forecast if you had no sales targets to hit? This one cuts through incentive distortion. If you remove the pressure, how would your team actually think about the pipeline? Their answer, that's the real pipeline. This is the work we do all day at Elefante RevOps. We come into companies where the pipeline is corrupted, where forecasts are unreliable, where leadership doesn't trust the data. And we don't just fix the data, we build systems and training so it stays clean. We help teams understand why clean pipeline matters, and we integrate it into the way your company operates. Because here's what I know for certain. If your pipeline is lying, everything downstream is affected. Hiring, planning, board conversations, strategy. It all cascades from the corrupted data. But if your pipeline is clean, if it's real, everything changes. Here's what I want you to do this week. Run the 30-minute audit. Pull your pipeline, remove the dead deals, sanity check your stages, ask your top rep what they actually think, then ask yourself how much inflation is there? How much do I actually trust this number? If you find corruption, and you probably will, reach out. At Elefante RevOps, we specialize in turning corrupted pipelines into forecasting tools you can actually rely on. Because your board deserves an honest number, your investors deserve clarity, and you deserve to sleep at night. Clean pipeline, honest forecasts, confident decisions, that's what we build. My name's Colton Rodrigue. Let's go do it. Bye for now.